Welcome to TechReview, the perfect source for staying up to date with the most important developments in innovation, technology, and society. And today I'm joined by Eric Dauenhauer, author of a petition for responsible AI development on change.org. Amongst others, this petition is addressed to Joe Biden, President of the United States, and already has more than 120,000 signatures. But before we start, let's take a look at what is actually happening, why it is so important that we talk about this. And this is, for example, regarding news like we saw on The Verge, where we read last month that Microsoft, amongst other companies, had massive layoffs, but not only layoffs in terms of different different people, but especially the team that was assigned for ethical AI or responsible utilization of AI. Yeah, and this is weird because right now I think everywhere on this planet people are discussing about the threats and the unethical usage of data and the training of these very, very powerful large language models that we know as GPT or DALL-E or Midjourney and all these generative AI models that are incredibly powerful, but nobody really understands how powerful they actually are and what is coming next with GPT-4, for example. Yeah, and even though Microsoft still claims they have all the guidelines in place and they have everything in there what they need for utilization of ethical AI, for example, I think they actually have a dedicated website with all of the AI principles. This dedicated team that was just fired, they were responsible for actually making the product development apply these rules. Yeah, and so we have this very, very interesting balance or imbalance between what we all fear that might happen with the AI that is currently developed and what the big companies they actually have their hands in there are doing. And that's why I'm super, super happy to have Eric here with me in the call, because Eric is dealing a lot with this topic and is very active in the scene. So Eric, please tell us something about yourself and what you're doing with this petition and what your goals are.
So hi, Tarek. So first of all, great to be here and thanks for having me on the show. So a few quick words about me. So my name is Eric Dauenhauer. I'm currently working as an executive advisor. So my main role is to help clients with their product, business, and also transformation strategies. I've been in the tech industry for now about more than 15 years, I guess. I've been in several leading roles in startup companies, ranging from product management to leading software departments with around 60 people. And in these roles, I have a lot of things to do with the technologies you are talking about. For example, like analytics and big data, also chatbots, ad technologies, but also search-related topics, so intent and prediction. So I'm quite into the topic and into the technical details as well. And I'm also reading a lot of the stuff because all of my clients want to know what should we do now about it now that these models are here. And that's what I'm trying to help clients with and also be informed. And that's also one of the reasons why I started the petition you just mentioned.
Yeah, right. And I could imagine, I mean, this is maybe a question for you. Did you expect that this petition gets such a big traction that actually 120,000 people are signing this? And this one is, I think, even featured on the front page of change.org, right?
Yes, it currently is. I'm pretty overwhelmed that so many people have signed. I didn't expect it. I was thinking about, okay, maybe a few hundred people or maybe 1,000 sign. But I didn't expect that 120,000 people would sign this petition or even more because the number is growing every day. More than 1,000 or 2,000 people are coming together each day and signing this. So first of all, if someone is viewing this that has also signed, thank you very much for signing the petition. I feel pretty honored. I'm glad so many people follow the idea, and I hope to move the lever in the right direction with this petition.
Yeah, right. But what exactly do you expect this petition to fulfill? What are your goals with this? Because Microsoft, for example, they are pledging they are already implementing everything that they promise in terms of AI regulations and guidelines. So what is it that you think that the petition will reach?
So first of all, my greatest hope was to raise awareness in the public about the topic, and that there are a lot of things that we have to work on, because in this race to AGI that is happening really fast, we also need to work on the hard stuff. So for example, the black box problems, so that AI models produce outputs that we cannot understand, or ethic related topics, so that everyone benefits from the technology, and to ensure that the technology is not misused by anyone, because these tools are very, very powerful. And so we really have to work on that topics to ensure that AI is really beneficial. So maybe let's just put this in the picture. So imagine you and me, we just mentioned the race we're currently in. We're sitting in a race car with us as society as a whole, and we're racing down the racetrack on a straight up a hill. We have a beautiful landscape, and we enjoy the ride. It's quite fast. And then we get to the top of the mountain, and below the mountain, just behind the top, we see, okay, fuck, there's a curve coming, and there's a brick wall in front of us. So what should we do now? And the one thing that then happens is some people might become shocked. Okay, oh, what are we going to do now? And the best thing that you can do in such situations, if you're into motorsports, is not to look at the wall and the curve you're heading to, but first of all, look in the direction you want to go, and then steer in the direction and look at and maybe brake a little bit so that you can make it safe through the curve. And so my main goal is to raise the awareness to people and to get the focus in the right direction, so that we can ensure that we get smoothly through this curve. And the earlier we start to think about the topics related to AI ethics and the biases and black box problems that we have, and anticipate what might be coming behind this great hill, then we can make it safe wherever we want to go with AI. And I think that's a good thing to do. And with this petition, my thought was, okay, if there's a little chance that I can get a little leverage to steer this car in the right direction, then I want to do it. And that's why I did it. And yeah, like I said, I didn't expect that so many people sign it. But yeah, I'm doing the best I can now to reach out to people, and people in the industry and politics and organizations as well, to develop a plan, and now to really do things and not only talk about them.
Yeah, right. The article told like also the perspective from Microsoft and the people who were laid off. They said that they got, as an explanation for this move from Microsoft, the explanation that they are under very, very heavy pressure to deliver everything in time and faster. And so having this ethics people standing on the brake is something that they can't afford, because they need to be first on the market. And we currently see how successful Microsoft actually was with their rollout. They really got the lead in front of Google and basically all other AI-based companies, and what nobody actually expected, even in front of the Chinese. Everyone expected that right now we are at the point where Chinese software development takes over the leading role in front of Silicon Valley, and now Microsoft said no. And so one could argue that pushing through this ethical gray area was a very smart move, and the only way to actually succeed on this market, to train the models with everything that we can get our hands on, no matter who is the owner. It's like the generative image AI. Yeah, they trained it on everything that they could, and now the legal processes start with who is actually the owner of the source material. Yeah, and the same thing happens with all the data that you put into the ChatGPT test slot, for example. Yeah, in terms of GDPR, I think this is kind of illegal, and they already have these legal battles with European countries. I think in Italy, ChatGPT was for a short time
banned.
forbidden, because they do not have this option to delete personal data that is somehow in their model. Yeah, and so one could argue that they did the right thing by ignoring all ethical responsibilities. And now the question is, will we actually be able to push the brake? Will we be able to slow down this process now that we have this velocity on this market? Do you think this is actually possible?
I do believe it is possible to slow down a bit, but in the same manner, we have to speed up the hiring processes and put more resources on the other topics. I mean, I also read the article that you mentioned. I mean, it was around 30 people working at Microsoft that ensured the security of AI technology, basically. And after they cut it, there were around 7 people left. I mean, you invest $10 billion into a company related to AI, but you cannot afford 20 people or 23 people to work on AI ethics. I mean, I don't buy that argument, really. If it is important, you will find ways to hire those people and to get your stuff straight. So I understand that if you do not have the capabilities to hire that many people as fast as you need to, well, okay. But I don't buy that argument either, because with AI technologies, the workers can become more productive, and you can become more aware of stuff you have to work on, and you can find other ways instead of laying off those people that are really necessary in the industry right now. So I don't believe that this is really what caused it. It's just stakeholders, I guess, that led to those decisions. But it is really necessary not only to try to put your foot on the brakes, but also invest time and get more people and resources to work on those things. And it is possible. It is possible to train those people. It is possible to hire those people. And we have to do that fast, because the window of opportunity here is quite small. And I think the race you just mentioned, I think in some way, yes, it was necessary to push the boundary farther and to open the model and to let people use it and to train it even more, because it also started the good debate and discussion about, okay, what should we do about it now, instead of hiding it behind closed doors and developing for years and then coming out with it, and everybody is so scared and doesn't know what to do about it. So I think it was in some ways also a good move to go there and to do it now, so that people have a chance at least to get aware of what is happening and how can we deal with that as a whole, as a society, as humanity. So I see the upsides and the downsides, but I don't buy the argument that you have to lay off a team with around 30 people in a multi-billion dollar company or multi-billion company that has been bought. That's not the way to go.
Yeah,
it's a bad idea.
I think it's actually worse, because I don't think that it's actually the cost of having these people on your payroll, but actually having these people doing their jobs, because their job is to make sure that the product development is following these guidelines in the way that they are supposed to be meant. And if they are doing their job well, this means they have to be removed because they are an obstacle, right? So on the one hand, I think this is like a very nice sentiment in terms of they were doing their job very well, but in terms of product development, it seems to be contradicting their goals in terms of velocity. But let's assume for a second that we now come to this place where everyone agrees that we need more responsible AI development, and we need stricter guidelines for how these technologies are developed, deployed, tested, rolled out, and handled then in practical usage. What I still can't see is how we can actually enforce this kind of guideline. Or maybe guidelines are not supposed to be enforced because guideline is not a law, right? So how could you imagine, or how do you imagine, will we deal with these guidelines in the future? Will they stay guidelines, or do you see them stricter into like a law?
Yeah, I think guidelines will not work in this context, not at all. I mean, it's good that we have them and that we have a basis for discussion, what are boundaries that we should all agree on. But in terms of the usage and of societies as a whole and the impact that the technology has, we need more than just guidelines. We need regulations, we need laws to enforce some sort of things so that it really does happen in practice, and not only everybody says, oh yeah, we should do that. But well, let's make money first.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we need regulations, and this is also one reason why I set up the petition, because the moratorium that was set up, so the open letter that was signed by several leading scientists in AI and also Elon Musk, that argued about, okay, let's pause for half a year. I think we were talking about it earlier, is totally unrealistic. Nobody is going to stop in a race and just say, okay, let's pause for a second and wait what will happen, and then we're going to speed up again. That's not going to happen. So what we need is action from the side of the politics, in the economics, and in the product teams and the industries that are working with it. So how do we deal with it from the perspective of guidelines and rules and regulations? I think first of all, a good thing to do would be some sort of KYC regulation, so know your customer, who is using the technology, how old are these people, who is it, and maybe limit also in some sort of ways the access to sudden technologies that are quite dangerous, and maybe also limit the access to hardware resources. I mean, the US is currently doing that in an economic war with China, limiting the access to chips. So this is basically what's already happening on a state level, but we have to do that on a corporate level as well. And this is what I want to address, that we have to do these things in order to really change something. But what I don't mean by that is that what is happening in the EU currently and in Germany, some sort of over-regulation. For example, the AI Act. In the current version, I guess there is still statistical methods included that includes also, if you're working as a company or as a doctor with Excel files that have macros in them, you have to register and ensure that you are conform to the current regulation in the EU. So this basically cuts off every development, and it is so horrible for all the small, medium-sized companies around the EU, and especially in Germany. This is not the way to go, and it's not the best thing to, oh, we don't understand it. Okay, let's just put 100 laws on it so that no one wants to use it. That's not a good way to go. So I guess everything that we're going to do and have to do now, we have to do with a clear vision, okay, where we want to go and where does this lead to? And does this really help us as an economy? Or are we just afraid to make a bold move ourselves as Europeans? And we have to be bold in this situation, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that we in the Tech Review also have like a running gag is Elon Musk. I think there's not a single episode where we do not talk about Elon Musk and one of his companies, but especially now that he is demanding the AI industry to pause for half a year. And at the same time, he's announcing that he wants to create his own AI company doing the same thing like everybody else. And it's not at all shady that he's asking everyone to wait for him until he is there to overtake everything, as he always does. It's like a running gag that we have here.
Yeah, it
But
definitely is.
yeah, yeah. And one thing that I personally really see as the big obstacle in this whole discussion is the enforcing body of all of these good regulation, not regulations, these good guidelines that are already in place. I think there's not a single company who does not have like their own AI guidelines, and there are some nations who have their own guidelines. Then there's the EU with their own guidelines, and I found a repository. What was it? At Algorithm Watch, where they have like a catalog, a global inventory of all of these global guidelines. And it's kind of scary to see that actually everyone has guidelines or multiple guidelines, but they are all very, very different. And they are all lacking some aspects here and the others are lacking some aspects there. But one thing that I think every single one of them has in common is that they are all guidelines, and not a single one of them has something like an enforcing body who actually enforces consequences if someone simply ignores it. And so I don't really have a benefit from having like a catalog of 100 different ethical guidelines if nobody actually cares if they are implemented. And this is why I'm very sad to see what is happening by Microsoft, because I do not doubt that they have a pretty written catalog of all of these guidelines, but if nobody feels obligated to actually act like this, then it's worth nothing. And so I think this is kind of this whole ethic washing discussion, like greenwashing. So it's using these guidelines as some marketing instrument to show the world we are the good ones because we have the best guidelines. But it does not help the problem itself if it's not acted upon. And I think this is the next big challenge that we have in here, at least until we run into issues when, let's say, the Chinese develop their versions of their powerful LLMs, and we have to skip this step again to stay ahead in this race.
Yeah, I think for the Chinese, it's very difficult. As far as I read and heard from, for example, like Max Tegmark and so on, is that China is currently way behind in AI development, especially with the limitation to access, especially to the graphic card chips and the chips that are needed to train those models. I don't know how big the impact is, but I think it is big enough, especially with the large amount of data that you just earlier mentioned that is currently collected and used to train the models even more. But also with I think the positive thing is that more people are thinking about, okay, how can we use this technology in beneficial ways? How can we train models without running all these large GPU clusters and make it even cheaper? I mean, there are models out there that are trained for, let's say, about $300 to $500 just with GPT models and the small language model that do pretty decent related to ChatGPT or GPT. Maybe not the GPT-4 version, but related to 3.5, they pretty much do well. So it's pretty awesome to see what is possible without all these large GPU clusters, for example. And this knowledge explosion that was mentioned in several books also leads to more creation and to more positive outcomes. We just have to ensure that the negative aspects stay a bit in mind and we take care of them as well. Then we're going to be fine, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds easy if you say it like that, but I think it is really, really a giant challenge. And
definitely, yes.
I'm really curious. I would love to travel into the future to read the history books that they are writing about this period in time, because I think like the past year was really a quantum leap in in terms of AI development and research. I mean, it's not really true, because the invention of the GPT model, I think it was actually in 2020, but they stopped the release out of fear how the end users are going to use this very powerful technology. And this alone shows us that even the researchers who created this large language model, they were aware of how powerful this technology is, and they stopped it for 2 years in rollout, simply to make sure to understand how to use it and how to, let's say, responsibly bring it to the people. Yeah, and it was, I think, a very smart move. And even though they took 2 years to understand their own technology, it's still incredibly, let's say, dark in there. Nobody really knows what it will be finally capable in there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point you're mentioning, especially because the models in some cases are just limited through filters, so that you do not get a response, which most people try to trick now with jailbreaking the system. But I think they really try to do their best to keep the model in its boundaries. Just to make one example, I tried like the end of last year, I was fiddling around with GPT-3, and I was prompting and testing what it responds to the question, which is the most harmful species on the planet? Yeah, it's humanity. Okay,
Sure.
obviously. But you got a pretty good answer. So what should be done about it? Okay, we should limit the population, and
Sure.
this was possible by the end of last year. I guess it was November, and I think if they fix it by the beginning of January. I tried the same prompt and didn't work anymore. So they're working hard on that stuff every day, because everybody's trying to find ways to get those answers out of those machines.
Exactly.
But it's also good. It's like a brute force attack from millions of people trying to break the system. But also this is, to put it in a good way, this is also necessary to ensure that it's safe. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that is happening with opening that thing to the public.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I have here on my soundboard for this kind of discussion exactly the right sound. Because we regularly come into this position where we talk about AI and technology, and one of the possible outcomes is, we finally built the killer robots that are going to wipe out humanity.
Definitely.
My last question is maybe the most important one, because you are working a lot with these technologies, but how much are you actually using? In which extent are you using AI tools in your everyday life?
I use them every day, pretty much. For example, for content creation, for product strategies, for project management, for example, but also to play around with coding. So do a little bit of coding. I'm not a developer, but I play around with the models, so at least I have to understand a little bit. And so I work with them every day in different ways. So I'm using ChatGPT, for example, to structure specific things, to structure my day, or to structure specific content, to get ideas for content, and then just use it as an impulse, and then work with what I have. It really increases productivity by a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what I basically do. And I also play around with Midjourney. Like the image you just showing is also from Midjourney. Yeah. And so I'm also one of the guys that is playing around and looking, that's looking great. Let's just try 20 more images. It's really also fun.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And I'm also one of these people who was shocked by what is possible. But basically, I only needed one day to involve all these tools into my everyday life. And it's the same thing. Every time I write an email in English is not my mother language. I let ChatGPT proofread it, for grammar errors, for spelling errors, even for style. And this is something where I'm so amazed by. ChatGPT its speciality is language, right? It is trained as a language machine. And so asking about its opinion about my written email, and it gives me like hints. Yeah, for clarity to present this one argument that you bring here, change the wording order. And it's actually teaching me writing better emails. And this is so amazing. Yeah. And also, like with coding, refactoring of your code, it's so easy for ChatGPT and it's so fast. And basically, for all tasks that I'm doing, I'm sitting on my computer all day. All my work is like electronically. And having ChatGPT as a partner, helping me with these things, like summarization of text, proofreading of other text, checking my code for mistakes, or even like change one table format into another table format, things where I would burn like a lot of time, right? Yeah. And I can't imagine anymore it's changing my way of working back to without AI tools. And it was so quick. And that's why I really think nobody will accept a state where people were saying, we have to regulate this in a degree where nobody will be able to work with this anymore. I don't think that anyone want to have the situation back.
No, definitely not. I mean, if you earlier mentioned the ban of ChatGPT in Italy, and then the funny thing is, okay, ChatGPT got banned, and you look at Google Trends and VPN search exploded absolutely. Right. So everybody was looking for VPN solutions just to use ChatGPT again. So banning, this is also an argument. So just banning the technology in terms of the internet and technologies that can work your way around these things is not going to work. Yeah, definitely not.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and this shows that we are at a point where trying to ban some kind of information or service on the internet in a certain location is ridiculous today. You can't ban these things. It's easy to go around that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even though it is super important to actually understand what we are doing here and what the effects are in all of these new technologies, especially, and this is something that I also know from my personal experience, trying to get a hold of the state of the art is nearly impossible, because every single week we have like new frameworks, new iterations, new versions, new companies popping out of nowhere, bringing new ways of utilizing this tech, that it's almost impossible to stay on top of the state of the art, because it's the moment you have like understood the next iteration, there's already the next one on the horizon. And I remember when they announced GPT-4 for the first time, I said, don't worry, we don't have to get in there, because it will take years until they bring it out onto the market. And I think like 1 week later, they had like, here's the alpha. Have fun with it. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's really happening quite fast. So, like a year ago, you could just read newspapers online, and you could stay on Twitter and keep up to date. Now you have to go on archive. So you have to read the scientific papers to stay ahead of the curve in order to know what's coming next, because like you mentioned, it's just happening within days or weeks with the new developments. So the best thing you can do if you want to stay ahead of the curve in terms of knowledge is to try to filter everything that is on artificial intelligence and read the papers on archive.
Exactly.
And summarize it with ChatGPT so that you don't have to read the whole paper.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but there are still tasks that I am doing manually, where after a while I think like, what are you doing? Don't do this by hand. Let the AI do it for you. Yeah, but I'm I still have to train myself to work more and more with this technology, to stay ahead of the curve. Eric, it was great having you on the show. You have incredible insights about these things, and I'm really looking forward to see what is going to happen with this petition, because even I think change.org, they are cheating a little bit. I remember that they had written on their website, when you reach 100,000 signatures, you will be one of the most signed petitions on change.org. And now that you crossed the 100,000, they are now writing, if you reach the 150,000 signatures, you will be one of the most signed petitions. But I guess you are already one of the most signed petitions, right?
At the moment, currently, yes. But the carrot is still hanging there, and every goal you reach will open the next one. But it's great to see. It's a great development with a petition. My goal is to develop next steps. Like I said, talk with people in the industry as well as in politics. So I was talking to the Bundesverband KI, someone from the Bundesverband. And I'm trying to get involved and really get into contact and to develop a plan together with some smart people, how to change and address those things and really get something into action and not only like talk about it. I really want to do something and use the leverage and the momentum that we have with it to move things in the right direction. If I can do that, I'm pretty happy.
I'm sure it will have some impact.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. So let's see. I would be happy to have you back on the show at some point of time when we have like the next iteration. And until then, for everyone listening and watching us right now, thanks for tuning in and see you and hear you next week.
Thank you, Tarek, for having me here. Bye.